Hello friends, welcome to my channel Vaira Citadel. I hope you enjoyed my intro video. And today, straight away, I am going into teaching for UGC NET paper 1. I'm not going to waste my time in telling you about what is NET exam and how many papers it contains, who conducts it, and what is the syllabus. Everything will be released in another video very soon. And this video is for those who have already registered and waiting for the exam dates to be announced. So today in this video, we are going to take up the first unit of paper 1 for UGC NET exam, that is teaching aptitude. And in this video, we will be discussing about the concepts of teaching, nature and characteristics of teaching, and levels of teaching. The first topic in the first unit is teaching aptitude, and today we are going to see about the concept of teaching, the nature and characteristics of teaching, and levels of teaching. So we're talking about the concepts of teaching. It is what is teaching. So there are so many definitions given by so many educationists, but any book on UGC NET exam will give you a lot of definition. You need not memorize all of them, you just understand the keywords. So, and if you see the keywords in the question paper, it is going to be a multiple choice question. You can recognize it and tick the correct answer intelligently. So it's Edmund who says it is an interactive process. It is interactive because there are two persons involved here, the teacher and the taught. Any process, and it is a process, it's not passive, it's something which is happening. Teaching is something happening. So it is an interactive process between the teacher and the taught. And according to Clark, it is a change in the behavior. Any teaching should aim at change in the behavior of the students. The entry behavior of the student is different and the outcoming behavior is different. That should be different. That is the purpose of teaching. And Morrison says it is an intimate contact between a more matured person and a less matured person. Who is the more matured person? The teacher is, of course, the more matured person. He does not use the senior person, or he does not refer to age at all. It is an intimate contact. The teacher and the student should develop an intimate contact. Only then it is possible for the pupil to develop his personality. So these are some of the definitions for characteristics of teaching. It is dynamic, social and humane. It is humane, not human. Dynamic, why? Because teaching is an active process. First of all, it is a process because it is something which is happening. It is very active. It takes place between the teacher and the taught. There may be more than one pupils. So it is dynamic, always changing, because so many social components are involved, the human components are involved. Anything which is social and human characteristics are involved, it will become dynamic, ever changing, because we change the methods of teaching, we change the content, we change the teaching aids. So it is never static, and the teacher interacts with the students. So it is always dynamic, and it is a continuous process. Like learning, teaching is also continuous. Learning takes place from cradle to graveyard. In the same way, teaching also, accordingly, it is also continuous. It never stops, it never ends. Nobody can ever say, I have learnt everything. Is it possible? No. So that is why we say it is a continuous process. And it is a complex activity. Why? Because as you can see, it involves three variables, namely the independent variable, which is the teacher. What is an independent variable? That which can be manipulated only by you and by the nature is independent variable. It's not dependent on any other variable. So the teacher is the independent variable, and the teacher has the full control over the dependent variable. What is the dependent variable here? The student. So the student gets influenced by the teacher. That is why the student becomes a dependent variable, and there are other intervening variables. What are the intervening variables? They are mediating variables, or variables which actually do not exist. They are hypothetical, but they are used to explain the influence of the dependent variable on the influence of the independent variable on the dependent variable. So we say it is a complex activity involving the three variables, and it involves so many modes of teaching. Education, teaching, and you've got conditioning, training, instruction, indoctrination. All these words may look similar, but they are different. When you talk about education, it is highly comprehensive. It includes teaching, it includes conditioning, it includes training, it includes instruction, and it includes indoctrination, and much more. Education is the development of overall personality of the student or the learners, and it includes teaching, the formal teaching and informal teaching. And teaching comes next to education. And teaching aims at the overall development of the personality, and it includes conditioning, training, instruction, and indoctrination. And teaching may result in change in the behavior, or it may result in change in beliefs. Talking about change in the behavior, it can be brought about by conditioning or by training, which are all different methods, different modes of teaching. What is conditioning? Conditioning it involves repetition. You keep on giving the same stimulus, then the student or the pupil, they get conditioned to that stimulus and they respond in the desired way. For example, the ringing of the bells in the school, the students are supposed to assemble in the morning assembly hall. So automatically, as soon as they hear the bell, they will go into the assembly hall. This is as a result of conditioning. This is a kind of a mode of teaching. And the training is also a mode of teaching where a set of stimuli are given to the people and they are expected to behave in the desirable way. A lot of stimuli, many stimuli are given one after another, and they are expected to behave in a particular way. So you give repetition again. And while talking about change in the beliefs, teaching also brings about change in beliefs, change in the ideas, change in the attitudes of the students. How can it be done? By giving instruction, or it can be done by giving indoctrination. They are also forms of teaching. In instruction, you give a set of instructions or commands to be followed by the student step by step. And indoctrination is also a set of commands, but here there is in instruction there is a choice. Always the students is taught how to think. So he is just given instruction as to how to do it, what is right, what is wrong, and he has got the choice to he can choose his way to act. But in indoctrination, there is no choice. You are given instruction as to what to think. So that beliefs, ideas are indoctrinated into your head. They are poured into your head. In instruction, the students can question there is a little bit of freedom, but in indoctrination there is no freedom, and the student is made to believe whatever he is told. So while going from conditioning to the last one, you see in conditioning there is repetition of the stimuli, and there is strict discipline, and in training also there is strict discipline is involved, and instruction also strict discipline, and indoctrination strict discipline. But in the case of teaching, it is freedom. Freedom is there. So that is why we say in all these modes of teaching, conditioning, training, instruction, indoctrination, they all come under authoritarian way of teaching. So teaching can be classified into authoritarian, democratic, and laissez-faire. We'll see what it is about. Authoritarian is something that is teacher-centered, the authoritarian way of teaching. The entire classroom is teacher-centered. The teacher takes the entire control, and the students are passive here. And in this mode of teaching, only the memory level, M, stands for the memory level. So only the memory level of teaching occurs, and memory level of understanding occurs. And in the next mode of teaching, democratic way of teaching, the teacher is flexible and the students are given freedom. Of course, discipline is there, but it is self-discipline, and the student are given certain amount of freedom, and they can ask questions, and they can raise doubts, and they can even criticize the teacher. So that is democratic way of teaching, mode of teaching. And the third one, laissez-faire, is a French word, and it is borrowed from economics, where there is no control, complete freedom. So only the self-discipline is seen among the students, and that will result in the reflective level of teaching. So that is what M stands for, memory level of teaching, and U stands for understanding level of teaching, and R stands for reflective level of teaching. So as you see in conditioning, training, and instruction and indoctrination, it is always, all of them are authoritarian mode of teaching. There is no democracy involved. But in teaching, there is democracy. And in laissez-faire condition, it is the highest mode of thinking happens. And in authoritarian mode of teaching, it is thoughtless. Rote memory is given importance, and it is memory. And in democratic way of teaching, there is understanding, there is freedom, but there is discipline also, and it results in understanding of the subject. And it is also thoughtful teaching. And in laissez-faire mode of teaching, the highest form of thinking happens, highly thoughtful teaching taking place, and it results in reflective level of teaching, which is the highest form of learning, where the students are not just learn to memorize or understand the facts, understand the concepts, but also apply whatever they have learned into real life situations. They undertake projects to solve real life problems. So that is why teaching involves all these things. That is why we say it is a complex activity, and it involves the three variables, dependent, independent, and intervening variables, and hence it is complex activity. And again, it can be formal or informal teaching. Formal teaching takes place within a formal building, infrastructure is there, and a structured syllabus, a structured timetable is there. So everything is well planned and systematic in a formal way of teaching. Schools and colleges and universities are example for formal teaching. And informal teaching happens in a library, while reading newspaper, while playing in the playground, or in the cinema hall sometimes. These are all informal teaching, something we learn. So nothing is structured, there is no schedule, no timetable, and but still you learn something. That is informal way of learning or informal teaching. And teaching again can be science or it can be art. It's both. Why teaching is science? Because teaching is systematic. You plan, you make lesson plans, you plan the activities and you execute it, you monitor it and you evaluate it. Assessment is there and it is measurable. And what has reached the minds of the students, you are able to measure by means of assessment, and it is modifiable. You can modify it. So all these are characteristics of science, where you can observe, measure and modify an experiment. So that is why in teaching we do conduct experiments. Like we start with one teaching method and switch on to, if it doesn't work, we switch on to another method. So that is why we say it is a science. And it is also an art. Why art? Because it involves creativity on the part of the teacher. And it is subjective. It varies from student to student. The teacher adopts different methods to different students. It is individualistic and it is flexible. So we say it is an art. So that is why, because of all these concepts are involved in teaching, we say it is a complex activity. And while talking about the levels of teaching, memory level, understanding level, and reflective levels of teaching, we have to talk about Bloom's taxonomy, which we will do it in the next video. And if you like this video, please subscribe to Vaira Citadel and click the bell icon so that you will receive the notification when I publish the next video on UGC NET paper 1.